if you have any kind of a hard pillow, memory foam pillow, or a blanket that you can put to cushion the knees when we go onto hands and knees, let's have that ready. Also any kind of resistance bands. Usually for these, for today, I'll use resistance bands. So if you have any kind of therapy bands or things, let's have those ready as well. Any kind of weight, free weights, any kind of yoga blocks, let's have those on hand. Other than that, if you don't have a resistance band, let's use just a regular belt as a supplement. I'll kind of show you how we can kind of supplement that as well, okay? So with that being said, I know kind of with us going kind of in and out of quarantine, we may be sitting longer durations of time. So some of the stuff I like to focus on just for the specific time period are some mobility exercises to counteract some of the like postural stress you may be putting your body in through this time. So, you know, with these things, I'll do some of them as repeat, but kind of pick and choose maybe 2 or 3 exercises that you like out of the bunch and really try to incorporate that into your routine, because that'll help really counteract some of that postural like stress that you may have from sitting a little bit longer, okay? So with that being said, if you already have those things, I'm gonna get going with some of the stretches and then we'll kind of ease into the exercises when we get started here, okay? To start out here, I'm just sitting in a chair. Let's go ahead and have a seat. We're gonna bring one leg up. We're gonna just go ahead and rest our ankle on our knee here. And we're gonna apply downward pressure down into that knee. Let me sit back here a little bit so you can see. So I'm applying downward pressure into that knee, and I like to rotate to the side that I'm putting pressure into the knee to. So if I have my left leg up, I'm gonna be rotating to my right side. And then the goal here is to just allow your chest to come over your knees and open the hip. So if we do long periods of sitting, those hip muscles are gonna get really tight and put under a lot of stress. So we need to do some exercises to open up that hip musculature, especially up to the glute and hip flexor, because they're under a constant state of stress when we're sitting, right? So if you're doing more than 2 to 3 hours of sitting, I would definitely recommend getting in this kind of position and doing some of these in sequence just to make sure the hips don't get too tight. And usually what happens is you'll get the hips being tight, but that'll disguise itself as low back pain. So sometimes if you have low back pain, that's an indication that you have the hip tightness. Some of these exercises kind of help with that a little bit, okay? So let's just do about 8 to 10 on each side here to start out with. Just go nice and slow. The goal here is to just allow gravity to kind of go over your knee. Go slow, think about really just opening up the stretch, opening up the hip, and then hinging up a little bit. Something to note too is I'll put downward pressure into my knee as I shift to make sure that hip stays in line. I like to think about trying to keep my knee as parallel to this opposite knee as I can, okay? Doesn't have to be perfect, but the closest you get to parallel, the better when you're doing this kind of stretch, okay? Good, let's do one more here. All right, let's go ahead and change sides here. So same thing on the other side real quick. Bringing my ankle up, I'm resting my other knee up now. Pushing down into this knee, and then I'm gonna be shifting to the opposite side here. Good, come up nice and easy. Let's just do about 8 on this side, nice and easy. And then also something to note, if you have any kind of pre-existing chronic nerve pain in the lower back, sciatica, things like that, this exercise in particular is gonna really help decompress that SI joint and get some of that the pressure off that nerve to get you out of that nerve pain. So if you ever do have periods where that neuropathy fires up, do this kind of exercise to really help alleviate some of that tension around the hip. Good, let's relax here. Let's come back to center of our chair now. What we're gonna do now, we're gonna shift to one side of our chair. So we're just gonna go off center. So I'm just gonna shift over to my right side here. Let's go ahead, find one side. And then I always like to do this one to open up that hip flexor. So we just worked on our back of our hip. Let's go ahead and work the front of our hip now. There we go. So with this one, all I'm gonna be doing is bringing my leg back. I'm gonna be off-centered of the chair, and then I'm gonna be thinking about pushing my leg back behind me. So as I do that, I'm gonna be thinking about arching myself back, keeping my chest up, and really just trying to get my chest up towards the ceiling. So if you see me from the lateral view here, I'm forward in my chair. I'm not sitting all the way back. I'm scooted up, One leg's out, and I'm gonna be trying to hinge back and forward, okay? So let's go ahead and do that for 8 on each side. I'm gonna start with my left, just go nice and slow, leaning back, and then coming forward nice and easy. I try to think about putting my toes down into the floor. And that also allows your ankle to flex as well. Just go nice and slow. And if you want to, with that hand, you can go ahead and place that hand on your hip and push it forward as you flex back. Good. Let's do 2 more on this side. Good. Last one. Good, guys. All right, let's change sides. Let's go ahead and just do 8 on the other side real quick. And then same sequence on this side. Leg is forward, not all the way. I'm bringing this one forward, this one is coming back, and then I'm hinging here, same thing. Just go nice and slow, really focusing on opening up the hip. If you need to, you can do this in a standing position, just go in a staggered stance. And go nice and slow here, really focusing on arching yourself back. Good, let's do 2 more. Good, last one. All righty, and relax here. All right, so what we're gonna do here to get started, let's go ahead and transition onto the floor. We're gonna get started with our floor exercises. So for this first couple, make sure you have something for your knees, and also something for your wrists as well, okay? I like to place this chair just to the side of me, so if you need to come down on the hands and knees, you can take some pressure off the uppers, the lowers by placing some pressure on the chair here, okay? Okay, so we're gonna start off in this position here. I'm gonna take this out of the way. And then we're gonna bring one leg forward into a split-legged position. So this will be our first setup for today. Let's go ahead and grab the free weights. If you have any free weights on hand, let's go ahead and grab the weights for this exercise. It could be any amount. Doesn't necessarily need to be a lot. Just something that you can have extended out, preferably 5, 10 pounds, something like that. Okay, from here, we're trying to stay 90 degrees. So you don't want to be here and have your toes come over your knees come over the toes. So when we're set up here, always make sure you're at 90 degrees. Same with my upper body. We don't want to be flexed. We always want to stay stacked wherever we are, okay? So I'm going to extend whatever I have out in front of me. We're going to be here. Let's go opposite side, rotate out and away. Down to your pocket, rotate out and away. So my upper body will always follow the weight. Wherever my upper body goes, follows my wrist. So I am looking and I'm tracking whatever I'm holding. I'm looking at whatever weight I have in my hand, and we don't want to be wavering in our hips. Our lower body needs to stay fixed. Good, let's go for about 10 to 12. Good, let's do a couple more. Last one. All right, guys, good. Let's relax here. Good, and then before we change sides, let's take advantage of this position and stretch our hip one more time. So I'm gonna place my hand here, and all I'm gonna be doing is leaning forward into this hip. So before we change sides, let's go ahead and open up that hip flexor. What we can also do, take our hand here, come up and over. And then reach back this way. So I'm gonna reach up and over. I'm trying to bring my hand up, straight up over my head and stretch through that hip. And then come back nice and easy. Good, let's do 2 more here and we'll go ahead and change sides. Good, last one. Good, and relax. Let's go ahead and change sides. I'm gonna bring that pillow to my other side. I'll bring the chair over if I need it. So now the chair is gonna be supporting my other side. And I'm gonna go ahead and bring that other leg up. So here you can see my back leg is kind of coming over my midline. We don't want that. We wanna make sure that when you're in a split-legged position, everything is in line, okay? So same thing on the other side. Let's go ahead and do 8. Rotate down, come out and away. Good, think about coming down to your pocket, coming out over your shoulder, like you're throwing a bucket of water over your shoulder. Go nice and slow, focus on your breathing. Breathe in and then breathe out as you go out and away. Try to come out in a diagonal angle, coming straight out, straight in. Good, let's do one more. Good, and relax. All right, so before we go down in our hands and knees, let's go ahead and stretch this hip. Okay, so same thing on this side. I'm gonna go ahead and place here and then reach up over my head, trying to stretch that hip flexor. Good, try to stay tall. You don't wanna be flexing forward here. So when you come forward, keep your chest up. Don't let the chest come over the knees. Good, let's do 2 more. Take your time, focus on breathing, open up the diaphragm, reach top shelf, take a big deep breath in here, breathe out as I come down and around, okay? So as I reach my hand up over my head, I'm taking a big deep breath in, fill your diaphragm with air, hold it in, and then as I come down, I breathe out. Let's do 1 more with that in mind. Good, and breathe out. Good stuff, guys. All right, let's take a breather here. We're gonna go down into hands and knees. So this is gonna be our next setup. I just have a pillow under my knees here, and if I need to, I have a chair here to help support some of my weight. Once we're in this position, we're gonna do a couple things for our back to open up our back. I don't think we did anything in the chair today to work on our back. So we're gonna work a little bit on stretching our back a little bit before we get into some of these exercises, okay? So first one we're gonna do, we're just gonna come down here and stack our wrists on top of our shoulder. And then we're gonna think about drawing our belly button in and creating a nice big arch in our back. And then I'm gonna try to push my hips back. So thinking about rotating in, rotating out. Tuck in, and then tuck back. And that's gonna work our back muscles. So really thinking about rotating in, arching that back, push back, and create a nice flat surface. Let's go ahead and do 8 of these, nice and easy. You want to create a nice big arch and then push back and create a nice flat table. One thing, as you flatten out your back, look upwards and take a nice big good, and then tuck your chin as you come down. Good, look up as you flatten the back. Good, let's do 2 more, okay? Good, 1 more. Good, and relax. We can go ahead, use the chair if we need to. Come up into a tall kneeling position and give our wrists a break. Good stuff. All right, we're gonna do 1 more in this position before we transition here, okay? Going back down into hands and knees. If you want to have a weight for this next exercise, you can go ahead, grab a weight if you want to. I'm going to reach down and across my body. So this next exercise, thinking about doing a cradling movement, okay? All I'm doing is I'm not necessarily holding the weight up off the floor. I'm letting gravity push me down into the floor. So the whole point here is allow gravity to push you down and get that stretch through your back. So all I'm doing first, focus on the stretch. I'm coming down and allowing gravity to push me down. As I come up, I'm trying to get as much as vertical as I can with this arm. So when I bring this arm up, my whole torso should follow. And then to go to where your mobility takes you. Don't feel like you have to force this mobility. Go to where you are and then come back. Don't force the shoulder mobility. Focus on the back stretch. Let's go ahead and do about 8 of them each side. Take your time here. Also, don't neglect the breathing. As you open up, take a big deep breath in and fill your diaphragm up with air. Breathe in as you come down. Breathe out as you come up. Good. Breathe out coming down. Breathe in coming up. Good. Let's do one more. Breathe in coming down. Good. Breathe out. Good. Let's go ahead. Change sides. Same thing on the other side real quickly. Focus on really allowing gravity to come down and around. And then open up towards the ceiling. Good. And then open up towards the ceiling. Good. Take your time. Really allow gravity to stretch your back. Good. Let's do one more. All righty, guys, and relax. Let's go ahead. Come up real quick. Give our wrists a break. All right. So what we're going to do next, let's go ahead and transition onto the floor. We're going to be lying on our side. So before we go on our back, we're going to start off in the side lying position first. If you need something to cushion your elbow, you can take the pillow that's on our knees, push it forward, and we're going to plant our elbow right in that side lying position with the pillow underneath the elbow, okay? If you need one for the hip as well, you can go ahead and grab a pillow for the hip, one for the shoulder as well, okay? Let's go ahead and grab those, and then we'll go into side lying. Okay, so going into side lying here, we want to be stacked. So when I lie down here on the floor, we want to make sure, I'm bringing this out of the way first. Okay, so we want to be stacked. So when I'm in this position, I want to make sure my shoulder is in line all the way through my heel. I don't want to have my legs out in front of me and be off at an angle. So when we go down into this position to start out with, really make sure that you're in line from your shoulder all the way down to your feet. A lot of the times, as you start doing these exercises, your hips will start to rotate and rock back and forward. So it's important as you do these exercises that you keep your hips nice and centered. Don't allow your hips to shift at all, okay? I want to do a little bit of shoulder stability and core exercises, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is try to lift our hips using our shoulder and our core. So I'm loading down through this pillow and I'm going to try to lift up. We're not trying to hold it. We're just trying to maintain some shoulder stability by loading our shoulder. It doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be some load. If you have a hard time pushing your hips up in this position, don't worry about raising your hips. Just focus on loading your whatever strength that you have in that shoulder. Introduce load down into that shoulder, okay? So if you can, try to lift up here and try to do this motion. If that's hard, just focus on pushing and holding and then relax, okay? Let's go ahead and do 8 to 10 with this exercise and then let's relax for a second, okay? So make sure that you're loading right down into that elbow, okay? You don't want to be off-centered. You want to be right under that shoulder, okay? Start here. If that's hard, start and just push into it. I'm not raising my body. I'm just pushing down into the pillow. And then relax. Push down and hold, and relax. You don't have to raise the hips if it's hard. Focus on just loading the shoulder. Good. And then you can do the full variation. If you feel comfortable, you can grab a weight, and you can work on keeping the hips up and rotating. Here, depending on where you're at, trying to maintain the stability is crucial, but this exercise is hard because it's a lot of load on the shoulder. So you have to incorporate some load through the shoulder by introducing it first and then kind of building up from there. Let's go ahead and bring our knees up. And then we're just going to rest in a sideline position next. Okay. So I'm going to be here, and I'm just going to be resting with my knees up, and I'm at 90 degrees. So you can see here my shoulders are on top of my hips, and my knees are in line with my hips. So knees in line with the hips, shoulders in line with the hips here. Okay? Once we're in this position, we're going to be working on rotating open and getting our chest rotated towards the ceiling. I'm going to go ahead and grab my hand here and anchor my leg down so I don't sway when I rotate, okay? So let's go nice and slow. If you have a weight, you can go ahead and grab the weight and just hold it in the hand as you rotate open, okay? The weight is to allow you to pull yourself open and have gravity help you. On this exercise, it's really important that you focus on your breathing. As I'm rotating open, I'm trying to open up my diaphragm again. Fill your lungs up with air. Hold it all in, and then breathe out as I come around. Take a big, deep breath in. Breathe out as I come around. If you have any shoulder pain as you rotate open, keep your arm in and just tuck. You don't have to keep your arm out. If you have the shoulder pain, you can tuck here and still do the exercise. You don't have to keep the arm extended, okay? Let's do a couple more. Last one. Good. All right. I'm going to stay facing this way. Let's go ahead and just do the other two exercises on the other side, and then we'll go ahead and go on our back, okay? So let's go ahead and do that same loading exercise for our shoulder on the flip side, and then we're going to also do that rotational movement on the other side before we go ahead and go on our back. The importance of this exercise with loading the shoulder is that a lot of times when we sit for long periods of time, we get a lot of tightness to the front of our rotator cuff. And that's because our shoulders become rounded, so it puts a lot of pressure to the front of the rotator. So a good way to load the shoulder without directly loading the shoulder to the front is by laterally loading it through the elbow. So you don't have to raise the hips when you do this exercise. It's just applying some load through the elbow to strengthen the shoulder capsule, okay? It doesn't have to be a lot. It just has to be enough to strengthen it, okay? So this exercise could be good at any level. Ideally, you want to do the full plank, but work your way up to it. Don't feel like you have to force yourself to raise the hips. Just make sure that you're introducing some load, okay? So I'll do a couple here, but let's go ahead, whatever you're at, when you're done with that, go ahead and do the rotational movement, okay? So you can start here and do the hip raises here, or you can do the full plank, whichever one you feel more comfortable with, okay? And again, I'm making sure I'm loading down into my elbow. I don't want it out in front of me. If you can, try to hold this position and do some rotations. See if you can hold it. Keep those hips up. Try to hold it. Good. Let's do a couple more, guys. Good. Let's take a breather and relax. All right. So before we go on our back, let's go ahead and make sure we do that the rotational movement on the other side. Go ahead and really focus as you rotate open on keeping a big breath through that whole rotation. So as you bring your arm open towards the floor, thinking about filling your lungs up and then breathing out as you come down and around, okay? Breathe in, open up the lungs. Breathe out, let everything out, okay? So this exercise is good because if you're doing a lot of sitting, again, you're gonna be in a lot of flexion, right? So we wanna do some thoracic mobility, some rotational movement to make sure our back stays a little bit loose and it doesn't get restricted from bending over too much, okay? So this is one of those exercises I would use in tandem with the ones I showed you initially as a good way, just as a routine exercise to add it, keep in your routine that you can implement daily to make sure that those areas don't get too tight, okay? So really good exercise. I always like to do that one during the class because again, it really does counteract that seated posture, okay? So let's go ahead and lie on our back. For these next couple things, we're gonna need, if you have a couple free weights, let's go grab those, pillow, and then a resistance band or some kind of belt. That's what we're gonna need next, okay? And then we're gonna be lying flat on our back. All right, so in this position, what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is I'm just lying flat back, and I'm gonna put this pillow that I just folded in half, and I'm gonna be putting it right in between my legs. So my legs are bent, my head is back, and then I'm just having something in between the legs here just to squeeze together. Whatever you got, it could be anything really, something that's gonna keep ideally your knees in line with the hips. You don't want your knees coming in too much, so something that's big enough at least to keep your knees in line with the hips here, okay? What we're gonna do to start, there's 3 different variations we can do this next exercise. The beginning is just focusing on lifting the knees. So at the bare minimum, I want us to focus on trying to lift the hips up or the knees up in line with the hips. So if you have any kind of back pain, focus on drawing your navel into your spine, pushing the belly button down into the floor. So as I'm lifting my knees up, I'm not trying to jerk my knees here and lift. I'm trying to drive down my belly button down into the floor, tucking my belly button in, and then trying to get my knees in line with my hips, and then I'm dropping down. If this exercise is easy, let's go ahead and grab some weight. And I'm gonna reach up over my head, this way. As I come down, I'm squeezing the pillow and I'm trying to touch my toes, okay? As I come out and away, I'm trying to keep that tension on my core. So it should be about 2 to 3 seconds on the way back. So I'm squeezing that pillow nice and tight, engaging my hips, and then I'm gonna be coming forward and then releasing nice and slow. Let's go ahead and do 10 to 12, nice and easy. Thinking about tucking your belly button into your spine, belly button in, and then releasing nice and slow. Belly button in, and then release nice and slow. The goal with the core, anything with core muscles, it's really time under tension. So when you're releasing your arms back over your head, it's important to keep that time under tension because that's what's stimulating the core muscles. You really want to take your time as you come from here back away because that's what's really keeping that core tight. So that's something to note with this exercise. You're not trying to do this nice and quick here. You want to release the body nice and slow so that core really has to work to keep the spine stabilized, okay? Let's go ahead and do one more just for good measure and then we'll take a break here. Good, let's relax. Let's go ahead and drop the hands. And then I'm gonna have the pillow in between my legs, but I'm just gonna relax my hands and put them palms up towards the ceiling next to me. And then what we're gonna do now is something I call pelvic tilts. So what we're gonna really focus on doing here is just trying to engage the hips and rotate the hips here. So as I rotate through here, I'm really just trying to rotate through and then tuck and then push out. I'm not rising my lower back. All I'm trying to do is try to arch my back here and then push my back into the floor as I squeeze my legs together, okay? So I'm arching my back and then I'm trying to push my back into the floor and squeeze that pillow together. So again, I'm gonna arch my back, I'm releasing the tension on the pillow, and then I'm squeezing that pillow together and I'm pushing my back into the floor. I'm not raising my hips up. I'm just squeezing and pushing my back into the floor. And then I'm gonna relax and then arch my lower back. I'm gonna try to push my back into the floor, squeeze that pillow together, and try to hold that for 3 seconds. And then relax. So let's go ahead and do 12 of those. Go nice and slow. The point here is to keep the tension on the hips and keep the back pushed into the floor, okay? So dealing with a lot of nerve pain in the lower back, going back to sciatica or any kind of lower back irritation, this would be a really good exercise to implement also with the rotational movement to take pressure off your lower back. A really good sequence here. I'm not raising my hips. I'm just rotating forward, rotating back, arching my back forward, squeezing and rotating my hips back, okay? Let's do one more. Push that back down into the floor, squeeze the pillow. Good, and relax. All right, I'm gonna take away the pillow. My legs are still gonna be bent here. If you have something to raise the foot for this next exercise, like a yoga block, you can implement the yoga block right under one leg to make this exercise a little bit more challenging. If you want to try that, just go ahead, okay? So if you have anything that can rise the foot a little bit, you can implement that by bringing it right under the whatever leg we keep on the floor, okay? So we're starting with this right leg. This right leg's gonna, or the left leg here, I'm sorry. The left leg is gonna stay bent. Right leg is gonna be coming up towards the ceiling. Once I'm here, now I'm gonna try to drive through my heel and lift my hips up. And then back down. If you have a hard time driving the hip all the way up, just focus on what range of motion you have. You can do a pulse, or you can try to drive and hold. But let's try to go ahead and do 10 or 12 of these if you can, okay? Aim for 12, and then we're gonna go ahead and change sides. So we're aiming for 12 on each side, okay? Keep that leg pointed up towards the ceiling, drive down through this heel. And I'm thinking about pushing my shoulders down. As I bring my hips up, I'm pushing my shoulders into the floor. Good, and then back down. Take your time. Focus on driving through that heel. Let's do 2 more. Good, last one. Good, let's go ahead and take a second before we do the other side and bring our legs out, give our hips a break. And then I'm gonna go ahead and bring my palms up towards the ceiling. And we call this corpses pose. They do it in yoga a lot. It's an exercise just to re-engage the core, take the pressure off the hips. I'm gonna keep my hands out towards the ceiling. And then I'm just trying to think about pushing my stomach down into the floor, and then I'm trying to raise it up. So I'm gonna put a weight here so you can see. I'm trying to lift that weight with my stomach, fill my stomach up with air, see how it rises, and then draw it in, push it down into the spine. My hands will stay up towards the ceiling. My goal is to try to keep that tension there at whatever point that is. Try to raise it up as much as you can. Hold it for 1, 2, 3. Breathe out. Draw your belly button into your spine, and then hold that. 1, 2, 3, okay? So let's go ahead and do this sequence for about 5, 6 count, and then we'll go ahead and finish up with the other side here, okay? So same thing, just go nice and slow. And then breathe out. Draw your belly button in. Ideally here, you don't want your head elevated, so I would want a neutral spine. So I would want my head all the way back on the floor. Just something to note. When you're doing any kind of posture related things like this, you want to have everything in line. So by putting something under the head, it's rising up the spine just a little bit, but it knocks you out of alignment. So something to note. When you're doing things like this, it's preferable to be all the way flat on the floor, nothing under the head usually, but it's okay for this because we're going to be transitioning. Let's do one more. Last one here. Big, deep breath in. Imagine like your lungs are a balloon. You're filling it up with air. Hold it. 1, 2, 3. Release all that air. Push your belly button into your spine. Nice flat back on the floor. Good, and relax. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this away. And then we're gonna go back into that bent leg position. Look, whatever side that you did first, would switch sides. Other side is coming up towards the ceiling. And then we're gonna go ahead and do 10 of these. So let's go ahead and do 10 by driving our hips up. Breathe out as I come down. Breathe in, breathe out. I'm pushing my shoulders down into the floor. I'm driving through the heel. I'm engaging my hips. Make sure that heel stays under your knee. Don't let that leg start coming out. Good, let's do 2 more. Good job, everyone. Last one. Good, and relax. Let's take a quick breather. Take a second. Good job. Good, good. All righty, so we're gonna transition up from here. We're gonna go ahead and do our standing exercises. So we're gonna come out from the floor. Before we come out though, we're gonna go back into the hands and knees position. So I'm just gonna turn over here and then we'll finish up in the hands and knees position with one more exercise, and then we'll come up into a standing position, okay? If I need to have the chair, I'm gonna, you can always bring over the chair for this just to offer some stability. So if I need to, I can always have this here to help me when I go into kneeling, split leg and kneeling, just so the knees don't take too much pressure here. I'm gonna go ahead and bring that pillow underneath me. But I'm only gonna put it under one side. I'm not gonna put it under both my knees. I'm just gonna be putting it under one knee here, okay? So whatever that you have that's gonna be used as the cushion here, you just want it on one knee. You don't want it on both. And when you see my setup here, you'll kind of see what I'm saying, okay? So I'm just gonna move this out of the way. Okay. So I'm gonna place this pillow just like this. So one side is gonna be off-centered. I'm gonna go down into hands and knees position just like this, okay? Once we're in this position here, my wrists want to stay on top of my shoulders. Again, we don't want to be out away from us. Make sure that we're stacked. Before we start anything, make sure you're stacked. Knees, hips, wrist, shoulder, okay? Once we're in this position here, I'm going to take one side and extend it out. My goal is to get my heel in line with my hip. So I'm extending out. Once we're here, other side up. So our goal is to get our wrist in line with our shoulder, our heel in line with our hip, okay? And to keep that stability, we don't want to be wavering, right? So as we get this extension, it's not so much the work on the shoulders and the heel, it's in our back. So when you try to bring your arm and leg up, engage your lower back, get that extension through the back, okay? So let's go ahead and do 8 of these, really focusing on engaging your back when you reach up, okay? Go nice and slow, keep your stability. And then also, if you want to do, you can add a weight into whatever side is extending up. So I could add a weight here and then rotate in and tuck my knee to my elbow here and then extend out and away. So that's an alternative if you want to challenge the core a little bit and also work the back. So this exercise is really good because it also works the back of your chain and the front of your chain by doing that rotation, okay? So let's go ahead and change sides. We're gonna do 8 on the other side. Try to do that rotation for this last set here, okay? So if you're just doing that extension, try to tuck in here now. Get that elbow to your knee and try to tuck in. And then see if you can get extended through your back, okay? So hips come up, shoulder in line, and then tuck your elbow to your knee. do 2 more here. Good, guys, and relax. We're gonna go ahead and come back up into kneeling. And then we're gonna go ahead and stand up here. We're gonna start working our nervous system and balance a little bit, okay? Good job, guys. All right, so for these next set of exercises, you wanna have no shoes on for these next couple things. So make sure that you're either barefoot or you have socks on. We don't want your shoes to influence your balance and your stability a little bit. So make sure we don't have anything on the feet. All right, to start out, preferably a memory foam, something that's a little bit, something that's gonna have a little bit of give. The whole point is we're gonna pretty much put under one side of the foot, and then we're gonna challenge our ankle, knee, and hip stability because we're standing on an uneven surface. If you have a yoga block, that would work well. Something that's gonna challenge your ankle stability. So we're gonna go ahead and place this under my foot, and then I'm gonna bring the chair over here just as an insurance policy so you can counterbalance if you need it, okay? So let's go ahead and put that. We're just gonna stand on one side. Okay, so we'll be here. Whatever side I'm standing on, if you feel comfortable, this is where I would put the chair next to you, just so you have that there if you need it. What we're gonna do now, let's get into a flexion position first. Try to get that knee in line with the hip here. Once we're in this position, we're gonna try to hold it here. Now, once we're in this position, my goal is to try to hinge back. So I'm gonna go from a side so you can see it better. So this is where we're gonna break it up, and then you find out where in the progression you are. So this is, I'm gonna break it up into steps, and then I want everyone to find out where in that progression you are and focus on that transition into the next movement, okay? So we're gonna be standing on one side. I'll bring this side up so you can see. I'm standing with my right leg on the pillow. My left knee is up here. What I'm gonna try to do first is go back and then come up into a flexion position. So that's the goal. Start with your hand on something, and then as you get good, you can alleviate, take the hand away, and start working without it. Okay? Don't worry, the goal here isn't to get your leg all the way back, it's to get hinge in your hips. So it just needs to be a little bit. So I'm here, I'm just hinging back a little bit. Get my chest over my toes, and then I'm coming up. Okay? So let's try that a couple times. The goal here is to shift your weight from your toes to your heels. So when I hinge back, I'm gonna be pushing my leg back, hinging myself back, get my weight on my heel when I push back, and then bring it up, stay stacked. My shoulders on top of my hips. So this is one of those ones I was talking to you at the beginning that I'm trying to add into the routine because it's a little bit more challenging because you have to stabilize a lot of your weight when you're moving through here, right? So really trying to engage your hips, engage the glutes and the hamstrings, push your weight back, and then try to bring that leg up on one side. Let's do 8 on each side. Just go nice and slow. Coming up nice and easy. Stay forward, keep your chest straight. And then you can work out to the point where you can grab a weight, and whatever side is coming back, you would keep the weight in that side. Just like that, okay? So that's kind of what's an exercise I want to start challenging people with. You can always find a way to take the pressure off the leg by having a chair in front of us. You don't have to do these unassisted. That's something to work towards, right? So this is something, let's go ahead and change sides. We'll do that same exercise on the other side now. Just put the pillow on the other leg, and then we'll do 8 on the other side. So again, setups here. I'm going to bring this over if I need it. And on whatever side I'm going to be doing the exercises with, I'm going to be having this here next to me, okay? And then my upper body, I'm staying tall. And then if you need to, you can hold on to this and work on just hinging. That's why this exercise is good. As you get more comfortable, take the hand away, start working this. The goal here is to get your chest over the toes a little bit as you hinge forward. But as I'm doing that, I'm pushing my hips back. So a lot of the times the hard part is that you're not pushing your hips back when you're bringing your chest forward. It's something to get used to. It's understandable. This one's a little bit weird because people aren't used to hinging. So you have to get used to pushing your hips back when you bring the chest over your knees this way. I'm trying to push my hips back when my chest is coming over. And then you come up, okay? So that's something to always work on. It's really good because as we sit a lot of times, our legs are bent at 90 degrees. So that hamstring gets really tight. By doing that exercise, you're really stretching that hamstring a lot. So that's a good one. Let's go ahead and grab a belt. We're gonna put it across the floor for our next exercise, okay? Okay? Any belt will work. I'm just gonna grab here and put it straight lateral across the floor here. Okay. So just so you can see the setup, it doesn't have to be a lot. It just has to be something so you can kind of visualize it, okay? If you're in kitchen, just use the tile. You can do that. Okay. Let's find the middle chairs next to us. We're gonna go heel toe on the floor. So we're gonna go here. Lower body is gonna stay fixed. We're just gonna be lined up in a tandem stance, okay? Let's go ahead and grab a weight. It could be a yoga block. It could be anything. Weighted would be better, but anything that you have that you can hold on to for this next one, okay? So we're still in that stance. I'm still in a tandem stance. I'm gonna work on bringing a weight out in front of me this way, and we're gonna try to rise it straight up, okay? This is where we're gonna start challenging our nervous system a lot because we're requiring to balance while also incorporating eye tracking in our movements, okay? So with that, a lot of the times what happens is that your nervous system is trying to coordinate one movement, your balance, but then it's also trying to multitask with eye tracking. And that's a lot of the times as we age, our proprioception, our balance, one of them tends to take a hit because your brain's trying to do two functions at the same time, and it's not acclimated to doing both. So doing these kind of exercises, it could be anything. It doesn't have to just be the tandem stance, but anything that we are requiring to track and balance at the same time, your nervous system is having to multitask. And sometimes people forget about that during therapy. A lot of times you'll just focus on doing the strength building, but you'll not train the nervous system. So this is a good example of trying to do both, yeah? So as you're doing this, let's just do a couple here. You can do one leg, just keep one leg forward and do like 8 raises one side, and then bring the other side forward and do again another 8, okay? The whole goal here is when you raise up, your eyes should never leave the weight. So the whole time you're trying to track the weight, okay? And then the further you arch, the harder it's gonna be, right? Because you're gonna wanna fall back. So as you come back over your head, try to keep your weight on your heels. Let's do a couple more. Last one. Good, guys. All right, and relax. Let's go ahead real quickly. Let's just change sides. We'll do an 8 on the other side. And then once we're done with that, we're going to line all the way back on the belt. We'll do a couple things with the walking on the belt, okay? So again, as I'm rising it, I'm really trying to arch my back and maintain focus. Take your time, really trying to arch and keep your eyes up, watching whatever you're looking at. Good. All right, let's take a second here. Let's come all the way back on the belt. So now I'm going to walk myself all the way back. And we're going to line all the way back up on the belt here. Heel toe, heel toe. If you have a weight, let's go ahead and grab that weight, and we're gonna push it out and away from us. Let's go ahead and do these walking, we call them farmer's walks, on the belt. Keep that weight or whatever you have out and away from you. Not close to your body. Keep it almost, if you can, try to keep it parallel to your shoulder. If the shoulder hurts, just raise it down. Let's do a couple, let's do it 2 to 3 times each way. And then go ahead, change sides. Last one. And then back one more time. Good. All right, real quickly, changing sides. Doing this 2 more times on this side. Same thing, out and away. Take your time. And then just making sure that you stay tall. Go heel toe, heel toe. Good. All right, coming back to center. Let's go ahead and have a seat in the chair. We're going to finish up with our upper body in the chair today. Okay. So what we're going to do next, a couple things just for our posture and to open up our chest and our shoulders a little bit. For these exercises, I'm going to go ahead and use a resistance band. So if you have any kind of resistance band here, this is where we're going to want to use one of those. Okay. I'm going to loop it where I'm not necessarily holding onto it. I prefer where I just wrap it around my wrist here. If you feel more comfortable, you can hold it here. You can hold it here. My preference just for this one, I'm going to show you with just the wrist here. I'm not going to be holding onto it, okay? So if you have a therapy band, just go ahead, loop it and tie it. You can do it that way for this one, okay? But I prefer it and don't have just the straight band. If you can tie it and make it a loop, that's probably better for this one, okay? All right, so what we're gonna do next, I'm gonna really focus on, this is gonna be really good, again, going into seated posture. We're gonna always wanna go into C-shaped posture if we sit for a long period of time, right? So these first couple ones are going to be worked on pulling our scapula back, opening up our chest, and pulling the shoulders back, okay? So if you had any kind of shoulder pain, nerve impingement, rotator cuff injury, you're going to have to, a lot of the time, stabilize the lateral part and the posterior part of the shoulder. These exercises will focus on those parts. So if you have any pre-existing shoulder injuries, shoulder impairments, this will be a good one to do as well. So what we're going to do here is start with our elbows into our sides. And then we're going to focus on pulling out and away as I come up. And then I'm going to pull my elbows down and in. So I'm keeping my elbows in, and then I'm pulling out and away, down and in. Let's go ahead and do 10 of these. So my elbows are staying in, my wrists are coming out. Keep my elbows in, pull in. Pull out and away, down and in. Almost like you're making a Y. Think like you're making a Y. Down and in. The goal here, you can almost use a belt as well. The concept is just different. It's time under tension. So when you're raising your arms up, you're trying to push your arms out the whole time. Keep that tension on the shoulders. Down and in. That's why I like it with just my wrists out, because I can focus on just pulling my wrists away and then pulling my wrists in. Good. Let's do one more. Good. And relax through here. Good. Let's take a second here. I'm going to go ahead and anchor one side. So I'm going to grab my hand here, anchor it to my pocket on the opposing side. So I want us to think about almost like you have a sword and the handle right here, and you're trying to pull the sword out from your opposite side. That's the kind of movement we're going to be doing. You're trying to pull the sword out of the holster. So we're going to be here. I'm going to grab onto the band here, just around the hands. Other side is going to be coming down in my pocket here. I'm going to be pushing out and away. So my arm isn't here. It's extended out and away. And then I'm going to be pulling here. Trying to just come across my body. If you have just a band or a belt, and you can't, it's like a gait belt, it doesn't have the elasticity, just focus on being here and holding it. So I'm going to be pushing my arms away from me, and I'm just going to focus on holding that tension there, like that. And then do the opposite here. So you don't necessarily have to do that full range of motion. You can just focus on holding it, and then switch, do the same thing other side. That tension is what we're looking for. If the range of motion is good, if you can, that's why it's better with the band, but if not, the belt would work here, okay? Let's do a couple more, just focusing on holding that. Really trying to open up. And then just do a 10 on the other side, okay? The last exercise I want to do for today is just to work the back of the shoulders. So we're going to start with just the palms facing up towards the ceiling, elbows in. And then we're going to finish up with just some rotation through here. So these are the last two sequences I want to do for today. Focus on doing that diagonal movement this way for 10. And then we're going to finish up with palms facing up and doing rotation through here. The goal here with this one, when I'm rotating out, is to imagine like I'm squeezing my shoulder blades together in the back. So when I'm pulling my palms away from me this way, I'm trying to squeeze my shoulders together in the back. So if you're sitting in the chair here, push yourself all the way back and imagine like you're trying to squeeze your shoulders together in the back of the seat as you're sitting back, okay? So that's a good way of really focusing on reinforcing positive posture, pulling your shoulders back, and then strengthening the scapula, because it tends to get weakened if you do a lot of sitting. Gravity is always pushing down on it, so that's what causes that C-shaped posture. So really good if you have nerve pain, cervical tightness through the spine. All these kind of things are going to help open up the spine and alleviate tension on the nerves, okay? So that's the class for today. You did a really good job. I'm trying to make it so it's multifaceted. You're not just focusing on one thing. I try to challenge your balance, your nervous system, and then also the core and hip stability. So these are little things that I try to make it so it's not a lot of equipment. It's things that you can just do with kind of basic equipment. So that's why really try to find the ones that you really like, and then try to supplement that on a weekly basis. You know, we'll meet one time a week. So that's why some of these exercises may not be suitable for everyone, but the ones that you really find that click with you and work well, try to mesh that into a morning and nightly routine. And it might help some of the underlying conditions if you have back, nerve, hip, shoulder pain. It really will help counteract some of that thing, okay? So again, my name is Jimmy Hylton. I work for Renew Health. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, things you want just privately addressed, you can always email me, contact me. I really enjoy this class because it's really nice that we have a virtual way of at least doing something. I know right now it's hard to kind of do anything. So it kind of helps break that routine, like I like to say, right? Again, exercise and well-being, it doesn't matter about what you do, as long as you find something that you can implement into your daily routine that you really enjoy. And that usually translates to long-term commitment, right? So try to find that thing, if it's walking around the cul-de-sac, if it's riding a bike, whatever that is for you, garden work around the house, find that thing that works well for you and just implement that in a way that would maintain some kind of physical activity on a weekly basis, yeah? So I appreciate everyone taking the afternoon to spend out with me. I know kind of virtually it's weird, but I appreciate everyone taking the time and kind of going through some of these things. I hope you guys get the benefit from it. And then please feel free to reach out to me if any questions or anything. I hope you get some benefit from these classes, yeah? So again, my name is Jimmy. I really love doing this class. Appreciate everyone coming out, yeah? Have a great week. I'll see everyone next Tuesday, okay? All right, bye guys.